everywhere GBS.
Good evening and welcome to the Insight Tonight. My name is Eugene Ochieng and I will be your host for the Insight Tonight. The President's very public dressing down of his cabinet secretaries was probably overdue. He mentioned that some were clueless about their ministries and others simply unavailable to the public or media to explain government projects. There's a CS infamous in media circles for giving blue ticks, never responds to media queries or genuine information requests, only speaks in official white-collar functions and walks away. And then there are others who most of the publics do not even know of their existence. 9 months after they were sworn in, an invisible CS. Tell us without Googling, who is the lands ministers? Well, this is a serious state of affairs. Tonight we have an exhilarating lineup of topics that demand our attention and contemplation, from the competence of our cabinet ministers and the state of our foreign policy to the intricacies of bipartisan talks. We aim to engage, challenge, and inspire you to think critically about the issue that impact us all as you navigate the depths of these discussions. You are encouraged, our esteemed audience, to be active participants. Your thoughts, questions, and insights are at the heartbeat of this show. And I invite you to join this conversation by sharing your perspective with us. 2144 is our SMS line. And at GBS TV Africa at Eugene Ochieng Kwach is where you get to engage with us and get to talk to us. But in the meantime, the major question tonight is, where is the government? Where is the government? Of course, we do not do this alone. We do this through the eyes of different thought leaders and analysts. Tonight's show, we have 3 guests. My first guest is Esther Warungi. Esther Warungi is the President for Public
Service Governance.
Public Service Governance. Yes, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion.
Thank you.
Yes, and of course we have Eugene Owade, who is a lawyer, joining us, of course, also in this conversation, and we have Samuel Masika. Samuel Masika is also a political analyst joining us for this conversation. And Samuel, I want to begin with you. A very important question that is being asked tonight. Where is the government? But let me ask you first of all, without Googling, who is the Lands Cabinet Secretary?
I will answer you in due course.
Yes, that is my question. The insight has begun.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't vividly remember the lands minister. It's a big question, okay. even in the public domain. Okay. So I think, and that's why the president is asking the ministers to come down from the high horses and talk with us down here. I think the ministers that we can see easily, some are in the media for good reasons, others are in the media for pomp or statements that they have made, and so those are the ones that we know, the ones that are working. Those are the ones that we can easily mention. For sure, I am a supporter of this government, and I can't remember the Minister of Lands.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Let me ask you, Esther, is the president actually admitting that he has incompetent ministers?
Actually, the president is very right. I'm not sure that we have a cabinet in Kenya because when we talk about public service delivery, this is a docket that calls for competence, capacity to deliver, integrity, being in the forefront to be able to drive the government development agenda. But as my colleague has just said, and as the president put it, they're in their hideouts. Where are they? We've not seen them, but all equals to the appointing authority. Who did he appoint? Who did the president appoint to be with him as a cabinet? This is where we go all it wrong when we talk of political appointments. When we talk of political rewarding, these are the results. And that's why in the public service, we have been saying these elections, or elections in Kenya, have messed this country because the current cabinet positions were given or were donated to these people. As a result of, you brought me 1,000 kuras or votes from this region, take this position, you brought me this, take this position. But if we are able to prompt a cabinet through vetting and appointment, where we know that we have a cabinet minister, public service, who qualify, or or a minister of lands who qualify to be a RADS manager, and or a cabinet minister in energy, who is qualified to be in energy, or a cabinet minister education, who is an educationist, then we will say we have a cabinet then, if that is the procedure. But for now, these political liwadis that the president gave himself have failed him. So, Your Excellency, go back to the drawing board, call yourself a small meeting. In fact, allow me to tell you, you don't have a cabinet. And we, as a country, don't have a cabinet. Thank you.
Wakili Owadi,
yes.
Let me just ask you this, because she has mentioned something dealing with vetting. Is the problem within the vetting process, or is this a systemic problem within the Kenya Kwanza government structure?
I think to begin with, I need not repeat what she has said, which is the factual largely true. And of course I agree. This whole thing begins, it's a governance issue, and it's also a vetting issue, because for us to appoint, for the president to appoint his people, or what we call the cabinet, it has to go through parliament. Parliament is actually whom we call the appointing power or the vetting power. Of course, throughout the appointing or vetting process, we saw significant issues being avoided. For instance, integrity issues were raised around most of these appointees. And then the other question was, were these people appointed because they were qualified or because they were political appointees, as my colleague said? Indeed, as we saw, most of the guys in cabinet, either they were in the previous government and can I say chased out? For instance, the Minister of Energy. The other one would be Treasury CS, was once in the Kibaki government, right? I believe it was in the Kibaki government. And a very damning report was actually revealed that this guy was one of the most unqualified people, if I may say so. On integrity issues, I think 80% of cabinet has a question mark on their head. And it's really troubling if the DPP was one of the institutions that was drawn into this entire debate, because cases were being dropped left, right, center. And now we have these people in government whose integrity is being questioned, and then you expect them to deliver. The other question as to whether we know the land CS or not, I do not think it should be a question to worry as much. What should worry us is whether the person in that office is delivering or not. So far, from the legal fraternity, most of the advocates had issues that were raised around the Arisasa platform. Some of them are being addressed, but we really need to, these people really need to be accountable. They have the expertise, because they have permanent secretaries who can help them. Those are actually the experts behind the scenes. The problem is, even the experts behind the scenes are political appointees. For instance, in the Ministry of Lands, we have this guy who vied in Langata, Nelson Korir. I may not have the authority to speak as to his merit, but I believe he was a political appointee. How has he performed so far? There are still questions around it.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
What maybe you just asked me to talk about the Minister of Lands, and I could not vividly remember his name, but
after Googling,
I haven't Googled.
Okay.
What I think, or what is happening around the cabinet secretaries, is that they have, he has mentioned Nixon Korir, and this came to mind. Being a political appointee does not in itself make you incompetent. What makes you incompetent is you forgetting that you're now no longer a political appointee, but a public servant. The question why some people are not in the public domain is you know, this is a public office. So in itself, you're a public officer. There is no way you can work in private, my brother, if you're a public officer. Come out, let us. Some of us, because many people don't own land, so they just need the confidence that issues, land has been a very emotive issue in this country. And I think that is why even that is coming up, who is the Minister of Lands. Because in the past, the ministers of land have been in the news every day trying to resolve issues around land. And I think of late we have not heard of very eye-catching cases of land, but they have been there before. So we just need to know who is this guy. If he's working, as my brother is saying, we just need to know who he is. Even if I remember his name today, and I don't attach a face.
But let me just ask you,
Yes.
don't you think that it is a problem? Because you're talking about, it doesn't matter who the CS Lands is.
Yes.
This is someone who is in the public, working for the people.
Yes.
Therefore means that some of the government policies, some of the government issues concerning land should actually be communicated to the people.
Publicly.
Yeah. So when this person is unavailable, people do not know who this leader is.
Yeah.
Don't you think it is a problem?
It is a problem for me because already we have said you are a public servant.
Okay.
Some of us are inspired by just seeing who is there, who is leading that office. You know, and that the reason why we are discussing even competency or incompetency is because there are people, when their CV is read, you quickly get inspired and believe this person will deliver.
Okay.
And then to double on that, then there are other people whose CV was bad, and today we are discussing the fact that they are clueless about their responsibility.
Okay.
Then you get to understand.
Okay, all
Yes.
of these conversations actually leads us to another very pertinent question about meritocracy and loyalty. Which one should be put above the other when maybe appointing leaders? Because obviously we have had leaders in previous times saying that we cannot appoint leaders in various positions who do not believe in our manifestos, who do not believe in what we stand for as Kenya Kwanza government. And then also the issue of meritocracy also. Which one should be placed above the other?
Definitely meritocracy. And I must say this, that it has come to a point that in the Republic of Kenya, we must draw a line between political leadership and public service leadership. Because public leadership must be public service leadership. What I mean by public service leadership is the ministries of government and the entire protocol, and including the semi-autonomous agencies of government must be driven by the power of meritocracy. I know we have been playing a lot of games because we have been basically as a country politicizing every other interventions in the country, like from appointees of the public service to appointees in the semi-autonomous agencies, parastatals, everywhere. It's like what I just said formally, that how many votes did you bring me from what region? How much did you campaign for me? And this is now what has been happening, and this is actually the resulting factor to where we are today. And that's why the president is complaining. So what do we do as a country? We must draw a line. Or what we have been saying in the public service. We have the Kenya Bila Uchaguzi Bill. Is it possible completely to do away with general elections and bring in vetting and appointment of leaders? We have seen it happen in one of our organs of government. We are not complaining about incompetence in the judiciary. We have never complained about incompetence of the judges, whether Supreme Court, High Court, or the Court of Appeal. But when it comes to the elected representation, where even if you are, I don't know what I would call it. Recently, we had a meeting in Murang'a, and we were trying to engage. Can we do away with general elections as a way of building leadership in Kenya? And a very old lady, actually, she was using her stick. She stood and she said, "Madam, let me tell you in this country how far we are." She said, "Even if an animal come backing and holding money, put me through to parliament, you'll take the money and take that particular animal to parliament." So what do you mean? That the people who are governing this country have been qualified by the power of majority votes regardless whether they are competent, whether they qualify in terms of meritocracy, or they qualify in terms of capacity to deliver. That is never the question. The question is usually, listen, when the president is appointing, is that, nani aliniletea hizi kura kutoka Coast Province, kutoka wapi, and that's why we have failed. So today, we are calling for a paradigm shift. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. We are taking a very quick shift break before I give you a chance maybe to tell us what you finally think about this as we shift to the next discourse. Well, we are taking a very quick short break, but we'll be right back.
Part 2 of Well Baby.
Naona mtu tutoto. Tunapatanga stress. Ujui ukashike wapi, ujui unaosha aje.
Kuna wakati unampea food direct kama we just mashed it, anashindwa kumeza.
If the baby chokes and they are not able to get enough oxygen, 4 minutes.
Na chakula hivi na mtoto.
Ukiintroduce mtoto to vitu kama mayai ama samaki, ukimintroduce probably around just before 1 year, it's they're less likely to have allergies. Ukiintroduce later anaweza kuwa na allergies.
You just, as first time mom, it's just a mess. You are learning everything and you don't know how to go about it.
I just want to advise all mothers, new mothers, and even mothers who are getting other babies.
Now, I've been accused by many people of being the happiest person they've met. And they're always asking me, don't you ever get angry? And I'm like, I do get angry, but I have learned how to regulate and how to be happy in every circumstance. Happiness comes from this state of happenings. It has to be brought by something, but that's not true. You can create your own happiness. Putting too much pressure and too much expectations on other people is going to set you up to not be happy. I want to introduce you to one more thing that you must absolutely avoid. You must do what you've been called by God to accomplish. I want to encourage you to look deep inside you and find what is the thing you like to do, what is the thing you do well and you enjoy doing. And with that, you'll be able to know this is a gifting that I have, and you'll feel more fulfilled, you'll feel more purposeful, you'll feel more, you feel like you're achieving more, even if your current situations don't allow it. But you know what I've learned? That everyone is on their own journey. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God loves you so, so much. I pray that you can see that He did a good job making you, and that you'll appreciate yourself and love yourself even more and be able to, share now that love with others. Because it first starts with loving yourself, and then you can love others. So do that from a place of abundance.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back to the Insight to the Bwanda. Before is our SMS line. We continue the conversation. Owadi, as we end this conversation, before we shift to another conversation, what do you make of the issue about the incompetent leaders?
I think merit is key. There has never been a question about merit not being on the table. It should be the first consideration. But equally, we've also seen leaders who have merit and they're also loyalists. I think being honest with each other, you'd rather go into a war with somebody you trust, somebody whom you've worked with, somebody who has been through the trenches with you, but they have to be qualified. I think as a very basic matter, they need the right qualifications. Do not take somebody who does not have expertise in land matters to the lands ministry. We will see chaos. The other day we saw one of the social media commentators critiquing almost every CS in Kenya. That one is in the health ministry, but she wants to terminate people's employment in other sectors, you know. She wants to exercise security under the security policy, you know. We have another one in trade who right now we are being told even diplomats are afraid of or something, yeah?
Okay.
So let us have merit as the basic issue. It is there, and the parliament and the parliamentary committees should actually make it mandatory. Of course, let us not have excuses or exceptions just because the politicians want their people on board.
Okay.
Let politicians need their people, but those people should be qualified.
Let me ask you about the president's public criticism specifically. Do you think it's a sign of weakness?
Okay, first of all, allow me to say something small about what they are saying, and then I'll say that. You know, being a loyalist does not make me incapable of working. The only thing that I think, and as Madam has said, some of these guys that the president gave the job supported him, or they helped in pushing him to become the president. And so he needs, with his agenda, he needs people who are like-minded to work together with him. The only thing that I think it's out here and many people are saying, and I saw even the deputy president saying about it, the moment these people were given the job by the president, they should stop being the friends of the president and the people's servants. It is impossible. Being a cabinet secretary is a political position, though the constitution is for has put it in a way that it's supposed to be a technocrat position. But again, many people from out here will not want to take the pressure that is under the cabinet secretaries go through. So they would rather just be people, like he's saying, the people who are known to the president. Now, two, you have asked me whether the president is a sign of weakness for the president to publicly reprimand his cabinet. I don't think it's just that it came on camera, but a manager is supposed to all the time do what the president did. So it is correct. They need to up their game because that is their leader telling them on what they are supposed to do.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And we are shifting this conversation to now the bipartisan talks between the president and the opposition leader.
Okay.
But we are actually seeing that both sides have actually got leaders who are going to spearhead this conversation. We're talking about another phase of the bipartisan talks. This is another, before we delve into the bipartisan talks, what maybe it portends, let me just ask you about these phases. We have different phases. What do they exude confidence that these conversations are not going to lead to another grandstanding between the government and the opposition? Let me start with you, Warungi.
Okay, very well. I think we've gone through and we saw the first phase of the bipartisan talks that collapsed. And now, actually, the talks has collapsed even before they started because, of course, what we are hearing coming from the two political sides is like, these are our 5 key items that we would like these talks to deliberate on. That's from Azimio. And then come Kenya Kwanza, this is what we need. First of all, they have not even agreed on exactly what they are going to discuss. That's one of the failing points because, first of all, if they're not able to agree, and we usually say, if two are not in agreement, there is no way you can work together. So there's still a tug of war. There's still supremacy wars. There's still hardliners, you know? Like, if we are to come to the talks, this is what we want to see. The issue of high cost of living, the issue, and the Kenya Kwanza now has a totally different list of what they want to be discussed. Okay. So, at the very onset, not unless they exercise humility and agree that Kenya is much more important, or the people of Kenya is important than Azimio and UDA, I'm not sure that we are going to have another successful bipartisan talks. It's very, very unfortunate.
Okay, Masika, let me come to you. We are having these two kinds of people. We have now another set of people leading or spearheading this conversation, the bipartisan talks. We have the Kenya Kwanzas have got Aaron Cheriot and Kimani Ichung'wah, who have been known to be hardliners for the longest time. History has it, the way they talk and every other thing. Unlike Kalonzo Musyoka and these others who have been known to be a bit diplomatic. And this begs the question where if really Kenya Kwanza really wants to have a meaningful conversation, bipartisan talks. And as she says that she thinks that this is going to lead to another grandstanding between the opposition and the government.
It is possible that, on the side of Kenya Kwanza, I think they just picked the parliamentarian leadership, both the Senate and the National Assembly. And I think even on the other side, I think Opio and I is also appearing. So I'm seeing a shouting match in the discussions coming up, but I'm thinking, as Madam has said, they are going to exercise humility and swallow each one's pride and discuss. The mistake that is happening is that this discussion that they are supposed to have done in the boardroom, we don't want to know what they are going to discuss there, because they need to agree on what to discuss on when they are going in there. I think the most obvious thing that Azimio has been bringing on the table was the cost of living. Most of the issues that have been highlighted by Kenya Kwanza were there in the first phase of the bipartisan talk. But the second phase, I think what led us here is the cost of living, which was actually leading to destruction and deaths because of the protests that we had. So I think they need to go sit down and agree on the list of the things that they will discuss before. That's why she's saying the talks are collapsing before they even begin. They need to go to the boardroom, agree on the list of items to discuss. Then I think that is when they can communicate to us in one paper, these are the issues that we are going to discuss. But so far, I think we are seeing division. But I think what we need, everybody wants to go. The fear that is there is the nusu mkate thing. That is the fear that is there. So that nobody goes in there and is cornered. So I think everybody is removing himself from a possibility of being blamed, because you don't know what will happen in the boardroom there. And I also don't know what exactly, because I think already the president and the Azimio leader, they met with the mediator. So I don't know. Most of the things I think that will be discussed must have been mentioned already in that pre-talk.
Well, Wakili Wade, let me just ask you this. Initially from the opposition, they mentioned Obasanjo's presence in these talks when the president met with the opposition leader. The Kenya Kwanza side actually were very angry with the opposition leader mentioning Obasanjo in this. But even from the political undertones that we are already seeing, do you think that this conversation, we're going to have a meaningful conversation, or another failed bipartisan talks?
I think let's give dialogue a chance. Let us not preempt. The issues so far, there might not be a clear pathway on the issues going to be discussed, but clearly from where I sit, Kenya Kwanza has given us a set of 5 issues. Azimi also gave us a set of 5 issues. Let's give them time. I saw Kalonzo Musyoka and his brigade asking the Kenya Kwanza side to meet. Is it next week, Monday, Tuesday? So let's give dialogue a chance. It might not matter right now from where we are, whether they agree or not. Let's understand these are politicians. They're in different camps. They're trying to support their bases. Of course, they all have political interest. Some which go beyond the cost of living. And Kenyans, of course, would prefer that it's only the cost of living that will be on the table. All right? But other people, given that these are politicians, for instance, Kenya Kwanza proposes, which has been something that has been discussed behind the scenes for more than 6 months or the better part of this year, that we have an office of the official leader of opposition. Most citizens are in opposition of this. But actually, it's the government that is in power which is proposing this. I'm very sure if Azimio was proposing this issue, we won't even have the talks. Right? So let us give dialogue chance.
Let me ask you.
Yes, however, before it rains, the crowds, you tell us whether there will be rain or not.
Yes. Let me just ask you this, because we understand that even as much as the opposition and the government are having these talks, but we cannot assume the place of the civil society in how important it is in bettering a country generally. Even as they're going to have these talks, what role are the stakeholders like the civil societies playing in these talks? We have only seen the politicians from Kenya Kwanza and the opposition. We're not seeing the civil societies and other stakeholders in this.
I must say, and I'm very clear in my mind, that if this process is left to politicians alone, it will not work. And that's why, actually, it was very, very necessary to consider that Kenya is a signatory of international protocols and processes, and the level we are already making head stand at the international circle. So it's very, very much necessary to have the international prayers come and be with us and be part of the talks and even give their views, not only from an international circle, although like the former president Obasanjo, Nigeria, is from the international circles. Still within the civil society, from the Republic of Kenya, we have seen even the Royal Society of Kenya. Very vibrant these days. They are already at the judiciary trying to make things work here and there. Other civil society organizations, including although we don't want very much to include the religious sector to a great extent, but it's good to have representation. So when we have that diversity, Kenya is a country that enjoys diversity in terms of whether it's tribal, racial, or religious, or whatever diversity. So if we bring that diversity on board, it will add a lot of value. When we leave it to the politicians around, like it is right now, of course you can see the hardliners. The Azimio says this, the UDA says this. No one. We are really waiting next week to see the first statement on Monday and the first meeting. We are very, very closely following to see what will come out of the first meeting. But if we had prayers from other sectors represented, then it would have been much more solid and very progressive and result-based bipartisan talks.
Okay, let me ask you, Masika, about this question on the bipartisan talks. The other one failed. Largely because of ego games between the government and the opposition. Who is who? And even from on the onset of this conversation, you saw it, the letter from Kenya Kwanza saying that this country will not go the violence way, meaning that they were already saying that if at all these conversations fail, they were not giving them a chance to go back to the streets. What is the government doing, the Kenya Kwanza government, doing to ensure that the public can actually have this conversation can exude public confidence that this is not going to fail again, that the issues that are raised by the opposition is going to be looked into so that we have a unified nation?
In my own opinion, because when the first batch of talks collapsed, these guys went back to the street, and this time round the conversation morphed into the cost of living. So my thinking is, I would like the Kenya Kwanza guys, although they are saying that cost of living cannot be discussed in these bipartisan talks, but Azimio is insisting that they want to discuss it. The only way to stop people from going to the street, because they went to the street because of cost of living. So I think the cost of living conversation should be there. That's one. If the cost of living is going to be on the list of the issues to be discussed, then I think we'll not have people going back to the street unless the Azimio guys are not being sincere. These other guys, these other issues that are on the list, I think they are legislative issues. They are issues that are supposed to be embedded in law. Like he's talking about creation of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the creation of the IBC team, among other things. Those are legislative issues. We should be left out of this issue. We elected MPs, we've elected representatives. They should discuss how the IBC will be congregated without necessarily making us go to the street. And again, she's saying that elections in this country don't seem to be paying because we elect people who just go out here and incite us against each other again. And so people are losing confidence in this thing. So I think the only way how this conversation is going to succeed, one, let's give dialogue a chance. Let these guys meet and talk and avoid grandstanding. You know, the government doesn't want to submit to Azimio, because the moment Azimio gives, in a conversation, if you bring the topics of discussion, then you might dominate the conversation, isn't it? Okay. Because you have researched about it, and I think that's why the government immediately, the government side rushed to give out the list of issues that they think should be addressed.
Okay, Wakili, let me hear from you. What do you think about this conversation going forward? Just everything, even as we come to the end of this conversation on the bipartisan talks.
I'll only say maybe 2 or 3 things. But the first one, as I said earlier, and my brother repeated, dialogue is key. The second issue is, in as much as I agree that most of the other issues are legislative, but then these things are cross-cutting. There are policy issues, there are governance issues that need to be addressed. And these need a multi-stakeholder approach. Have civil society on board. For instance, reconstitution of IEBC. It goes beyond just having a team of 7 members. It goes beyond questioning. It goes to questioning how elections have been. It goes to questioning whether our elections have been free, fair, credible, and transparent. These are issues that you can only go back to the Mwananchi to tell you what they think and what we can do to improve. The third issue would be, dialogue is critical because where Kenya is currently, and if you look at it broadly in terms of Africa and globally, Kenya should not go the way other countries are going. And we have been a good example so far. So let's give dialogue a chance. Okay. That team, in as much as we might think, of course they're politicians, but in as much as we would want to have politics at the center of the debate, I think for the sake of citizens, and for the sake of those 18 people who are killed in Kisumu, for the sake of youth who are being killed in Nairobi, just for going to the streets to demonstrate because they need to put food on their table. Okay. I think let us have cost of living as the first issue. Okay. The second issue should be compensating all the victims of illegal, unlawful detentions,
which is not on the list.
Illegal arrests, and extrajudicial killings. That is not on the list, but it should be.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give you a chance maybe when you come back as we continue the conversation. But of course, this conversation begs a lot of questions around these bipartisan talks. But we just hope that everything will be okay. We are taking a very quick short break again. Then we come back to the last part of this conversation. And of course, to the bond before is our SMS line. Continue with the conversation.
And I want you viewer, wewe mwenye uko hapo, wewe unaniangalia, niambie hapo kwa comment kama umeenda kuskaniwa macho. Kama umeenda kuskaniwa macho.
Kama uko hivyo nje na unataka kwa msanii, this is actually the best time, yeah, cause kwa social media.
Unaona hiyo time ilikuanga genge, si ndio? Ilikuwa genge tu, ni genge. Calif Records manze.
Kenyan artists honestly. Akunanga unity. You know, let me just tell you that for free. Akunanga.
Kaspanyumba.
Hey, Kaspanyumba.
Bro, that's a bad man. Yeah. Ngoma yenye ilikuwa ina hit ya TZ ilikuwa tu Mr. Nice peke yake. Tulikuwa tunasikia ngoma zetu.
We need to scale up our music so that to reach markets out there like
Ningetaka nikuone mami, so I call your phone to tell you that I'm all alone. Usiposhika I'll be at your door.
Everywhere, GBS.
Thank you so much and welcome back to this conversation. Of course, this segment we get to talk about Kenya's foreign policy. And of course, we want us to delve in this conversation, this last part of it, because we are short of time. Let me just ask, let me start with Masika. Masika, in light of Congo's recent, because we have had a lot of issues as a country, matters diplomatic, but there's this one that is, it is the most recent one, and that is Congo's recent protest against the presence of Kenyan troops in their country. What implication does actually this have in Kenya's military involvement in regional conflicts? And this is not the only time this is not the first time you're having such conversations. There's a time that Somalia wanted Kenyan troops out of their country. We're also seeing this happening with Congo. What do you make of this? Are we overstepping? Are we maybe infringing now on their rights?
Okay. I think before the Kenyan military went to Congo, there was a discussion between the two heads of state, and I think even AU was involved. And so our troops going to Congo was there was consensus around it. What I think is ailing most of the West African countries is the foreign meddling. I want you to understand that Congo has a lot of resources. When our military went there, there was an aspect of stability returning to Congo. But there are people who have been benefiting from the disruptions or the civil unrest in Congo and the rebel groups in Congo. With stability around, I would like you to understand, and I think the same thing is happening in Niger today as we discuss. There's somebody who wants us to keep fighting as they keep taking our natural resources. The same thing is happening in Niger. That is the same thing. Congo was becoming stable. Congo is endowed with minerals. Congo is, I think, is the richest country in Africa, yet the most mismanaged and with desperate populace world over. But they have everything. The moment they are going to become stable, then there's somebody who is not going to benefit by tapping those minerals that they want. I think you've seen what is happening in Niger. I want to just to compare. The first thing they have refused is to export uranium. And there's somebody they are cutting off. And that person is actually issuing threats back to. I'm just trying to look at, because I don't think our military did anything wrong. Or I don't know whether our president pissed off the president of Congo. But they were doing a good job. And I think we were seeing the fruits already.
Yes. What do you make of this generally? Because now Congo, isn't this becoming another issue in terms of our diplomatic relations?
Yeah, it's becoming another issue. And I must say that formally, even in the successive governments in the Republic of Kenya, we've seen and we have enjoyed good bilateral relations between Kenya and other countries. Like during the reign of His Excellency Mwai Kibaki, I remember very well that that Sudan and Somalia were a big beneficiary of these diplomatic relations. So for now, I really don't know what's happening. Maybe a bad blood between probably the two heads of state, and maybe they should call themselves to order and find out exactly what is happening. Because if the two heads of state are able to resolve the problems at their level, then I think it will trickle down to the defense forces, to any other agencies, whether it is solving socioeconomic bilateral relations, then it will solely depend on the relationship of the two heads of state, on the determining factors. So I think it calls upon the president of Kenya and the president of DRC to be able to identify the gaps between themselves and see the possibility of enjoying the bilateral relations that will be able to give a conducive environment for what our friend has just said.
Okay, but obviously,
yes,
that will affect how we are perceived by other countries. You had asked that, because if our military is being rejected for a very critical role they have been playing, then there was the Sudan spectacle, then I think, as you put it, then I think there will be a strain, obviously, between us and other countries and how we are perceived.
Okay. Before I ask you who is this actually who wants to see us to keep on fighting, let me ask Wakili think about it. Let me ask Wakili. Wakili, yes. You see, this is just as you said it, when our armies are rejected, then it shows some strain in our diplomatic relations with other countries in the region. What do you make of this? And actually, how can now Kenya itself ensure that they contribute to peace building without necessarily being seen as interferers or invading?
I think, Eugene, the truth of the matter is Kenya has really done well over the previous years.
True.
Most countries actually look up to Kenya in terms of stability, in terms of how our economy is doing, in terms of how diplomats perceive Kenya by itself as an investment hub. We've seen many corporations come to Kenya lately. But the other issue, usually when it comes to security matters, especially in this angle, you have to look at the money. You have to follow the money trail.
Exactly.
The truth of the matter is our security forces have been reported to be involved in some issues, especially along the Somali border, the charcoal business, we have the Mira business. In Congo, let's ask ourselves, why were those people demonstrating? What did they do? They did something. Congolese are not madmen or mad people to just go to the streets and start complaining that Kenyans are bad. If anything, Congolese are here in Kenya. We've not chased them away. They are in several estates in Nairobi, right? Let us look beyond the facade. Follow the money. Address the transparency issues. If it's a question of a foreign country coming to help, but under the guise of helping, some people are benefiting from such security policies, then let's address that.
Okay.
Because all these security matters influence our foreign policy, and they all hinge on our foreign policy.
Okay.
We are doing well, but let us avoid corruption or matters of the lack of transparency or accountability.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said there's some people who wants to see us keep on the fight.
Obviously, I think that is a speculation. Like he said, we do not have exactly facts on why our military are supposed to vacate Congo. But I want you to understand that most of the colonizers of some of African countries are still beneficiaries of our natural resources. And in Congo, despite the civil unrest, the M23 and others, we have thriving mining companies. Do you know that? They are owned by foreign people. I don't want to mention countries, my brother. They are called cartels. He's calling it cartels. So I don't want to mention countries, but I want you to understand, when people are fighting in villages and towns in Congo, and then there were rumors that there are countries that are funding the M23 that our military went to fight with. When you go back to the forest and areas where minerals are, they are thriving mineral companies and processing companies. And as we discuss, containers and shipment of the same minerals are leaving Congo. So that's the question. As he said, I didn't look at the angle of our military charcoal burning and doing that, and also meddling in the issues of the locals. But I was looking at the big money, and the big money, who benefits when the grasshoppers are fighting.
Okay. Esther, there's the issue of the president. The president actually says that Kenya is the cradle of mankind.
Kenya is
the cradle of mankind. So why not let people go home without interfering with them? That is now removing the visas.
I I
What do
like
you make
that.
of this?
Yeah,
I like
indeed,
that.
he has put it very clearly that those people coming from all over the world, they should consider Kenya as their home. And therefore, when you're going home, you don't need any visa. You just go home and enjoy your home. So I think it is always good also, even if you have a home, protect your home. You just don't open up your home like this and leave it for whoever want to come in with whatever, attitudes or whatever, influence. Because if again we don't protect the territory, like according to our constitution of Kenya, that we must protect the territory of the Republic of Kenya. And you know what it means by protecting the territory is getting to know who is coming in our borders, whether it is across the Somalia, it is across the Ethiopian or whatever border. Whoever is coming into the soil of Kenya, who are they? What intention do they have? If we don't control this and we open up to whoever Tom, Dick and Harry want to fly into Kenya, I only need a passport to drop into the soil of Kenya. No one knows what they're coming to do. And in such an era as now that we are experiencing quite a global recession on economy and socio-economic status. So many people are employing an ethical way of doing things, and they would run into any country to do some shoddy deals and then fly out of the country. No one knows where they were there. There are no records even to tell whether there was a German in Kenya, whether there was a Venezuelan, whether there was... No. I think, Your Excellency, it's good. Hospitality is good, and it's good to be good to the international fraternity, but it is also good that when you have a home, there is a gate. It's good to know who is knocking at the gate. What do they want?
It's always a security measure.
Very, very good. So I've just responded to you. As you just put it in layman's language, that it is very important to protect the territory of Kenya by ensuring that we continue with the visas. But we don't want to go through what we have been going through. Let me finish. We don't want to go through what we have been going through as a country. That sometimes you want to go to the United States of America to do some businesses and a few things here and there. But getting a visa, it will take you 3, 4, 5 years. That's closing an economy. So can we reduce only the bureaucratic processes of getting these visas? Your Excellency, what you can do is to make the visa process more friendly, other than saying that we are going to completely do away with the visas. It's very important to protect the territory.
Samuel, how do you think this will impact us before I come to Akili?
Even
as you give us your closing remarks, what do you think
I think first of all, I think the president means well, but sometimes in doing good, people might take advantage of the flexing of the rules around it. And so when people are freely left to enter and leave Kenya, currently, she forgot about terrorism. And I think I heard the president, was it a previous clip or recent, where there was a time that Dadaab camp was supposed to be closed, and the Somalis go back home. Because I don't know why there's been a resurgence of Al-Shabaab all of a sudden, and then again, we are removing the visa requirement. It's a security measure. So I think even as the president wants to do good, let's think about it. Again, as she said, let's know who is knocking on the gate and what they want, then we let them in, because not everybody mean well, and that's why we have the territorial boundaries to take care of our countries. And Kenya is a good country. We are hospitable people, and she said even international states should treat us as we treat them when they come. I think in Africa we love foreigners than even our own. But when we go to them, they treat us really badly. So they should change.
Wakili, what do you make of all this? And actually, how will this even impact on us and on our foreign policy?
An open door policy has both merits and demerits. The merits, of course, are on the higher end. The demerits include what my brother said, the security angle. Let us screen the people we allow into our country. The second issue related to it is that let us not allow people from outside come in to dictate our domestic affairs. It has affected people in West Africa. Let's have a rational way of looking at it. The third issue is, which is related to the merits, is that an open border policy is critical for bilateral trade. Especially right now, we are negotiating a regional trade framework across Africa. So it's critical that we allow people to come in to invest, but equally, they also allow us to go out there and invest. and invest in their countries. Eugene, today I read a report. I don't want to say I almost cried, but it was not funny. The report said that currently Western nations, out of approximately 50% of visa applicants were rejected. And these are people who are applying for academic visas. You know what that means? Because even today, the National Assembly Speaker was advising us to go out there and look for jobs, right? He was advising us to go out there to those other countries, get jobs, because here locally, we don't have these jobs, and the situation is bad. So may those countries also allow us to go into their country to get education and to get medicine or medical, like India. May they also allow us to have technology transfer, because we are now seeing multinationals like Google coming in. My parting shot would be, let public officers know or exercise the power in public trust. May they stick to the rule of law. Let them uphold democracy. We believe that if our public or political leaders have our common interest at hand, then this country will move forward. Thank you, Eugene.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for this insightful conversation, because we have come to the end of this conversation. And as we bring this enchanting episode of the Friday Insight Show to a close, we want to express our heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for being with us tonight. Your presence has made this show truly special. Thank you so much once again on behalf of everyone who has made this a success. Thank you so much, and see you next Friday. My name is Eugene Ochieng Kwach.